Hey everybody, Jim here, and welcome back to Unlocking the Keyword with the Key and Gong. Before we begin, I wanted to take a moment and thank everyone who's reached out to me through various social media and on Discord to tell me that they've seen my content, enjoyed my content, or watched my content. It means a lot to me to know that folks are watching, and I really appreciate everyone who's contributed in the form of subscribes, likes, comments, and all that jazz. It makes me feel like I'm actually doing something to contribute to the hobby. And, I took a little bit of time in June for me, and I'm getting back into it here because I want to continue to make stuff for the community. So because of that, I'm asking the community, is there anything you guys want to see out of this channel? Well, we've been doing Vassal stuff mostly, but we have the Vassal World Series winding down now. We have people getting back into stores, and there's other stuff out there than games. There's hobby, there's painting, there's modeling, there's terrain building, there's, even like places for real life games and stuff. If there's anything you guys are looking to see, let me know. Put it in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Hey, so yeah, unlocking the keyword Key and Gong. I thought I'd never get back to this. Folks new to the channel may not know, but I started it when I started the channel about 7 months ago now, at the time of this recording, because I was trying to figure out how Youko works, and I was starting to upload my gameplay videos from Vassal, and I did a PowerPoint like this on my thoughts on the keyword. I put in about half dozen games with her, a little over half dozen, almost 10. Only a few got uploaded. I just wasn't really enjoying her. She felt very unimportant in the grand scheme of things. The biggest thing she seemed to do was put a -1 card to the opponent's hand size, and everything she did on the table felt highly variable, I think is the better way to put it. Your opponent had so much agency in what she was doing that I never felt like I could force things to happen with her. And her keyword itself is strong, and it has strong models, but it has definite weaknesses. And I know I ran into a bunch of those. And I think that as we bring this series back, I'm going to do so without as much of a structured format, and just kind of play games with Youko and post them here and talk about her. Now, why I'm doing that is because the recent, as the time of this recording, Errata for Malifaux 3rd Edition has drastically changed how Youko herself plays, and has drastically changed how focused and distracted act in the game. These two things fundamentally change what Youko is doing on the board and how her crew works. So I gave her a try. I've put her on the table a couple times now, and you know what? She's a lot of fun. So I figured, hey, let's bring back this series, let's talk about it, and let's get more people playing this Control Master in Malifaux 3rd Edition. So what we're going to do with this video is I'm going to go through the changes to her card, the changes to Distracted and Focused, and then I'm going to talk about why I think she has one of the most impressive control kits in the game, and one of the combos I've been using in my games with her. So to start, here we have the pre- and post-errata cards for Youko. On the front of her card, the big change is that we lost Informants and gained Silent Control. This was a great change. Informants was not a very impactful ability. It, at best, allowed you to dodge a swing, but it also meant that if you were putting high cards at the bottom of the opponent's deck. If they got there, then the end of their deck was going to be a bunch of high cards, which is, it feels bad if your opponent goes into the last part of the turn and is like, oh, I'm going to swing on Youko, but I don't care about your serene countenance because I know you put 2 severes down there. Instead, we have an ability in Silent Control that actually synergizes with Calm Demeanor, because if they discard a card for Silent Control, you draw a card from Calm Demeanor, and if they don't discard a card from Silent Control, you get to dictate how they activate their models. And given what we're going to talk about, how she puts out a ton of Distracted, that means you can really disrupt the way your opponent tries to do things. In Malifaux, most crews have at least some amount of sequential actions that need to happen in a certain order. The combo I use for Youko, which we'll talk about later, is one of those things. Youko being able to disrupt that is a useful tool to have, and the fact that you're not spending any of her actions on it makes it even better. Speaking of actions, the back of Yoko's card has been revamped and is now a proper Master's Actions. She still has a melee action, but it's significantly better. Cutting Words is great. Targeting Willpower in general is great. Stat 6 is just, she's a master. She's a master that's going to be within 6 of a bunch of enemy models. She should probably be able to defend herself a little bit. Handing out slow with a master is pretty good. Damage track's nothing to write home about, and the trigger's okay, but it's not something you're going to be forcing. What you're really looking to do with Yoko's actions is going to be Riddles in the Dark. Now, I could go on and on about the triggers about Riddles in the Dark, and I might do a video on that if y'all want me to. Suffice it to say, having a trigger on every suit that all do things that enhance her ability to disrupt the enemy, draw cards, and apply hand pressure, Riddles is really what you want to be doing. Stat 7 is just amazing. Stat 7 in this game says you will make this happen, or you can bank cards to make this happen, and your opponent simply cannot stop it. And that's pretty good. And that goes into backroom dealings as well. Also stat 7. And this action is a great bonus action to have on Youko. It's a great way to open her activation, right? Knowing what your opponent has in their hand is great information to have. It's super in theme. And the baked-in trigger is so much better than it used to be. Subtle Influence might as well read, your opponent discards their highest card in hand, and you draw a card. It is cycling for the opponent, but since you know what they have in hand, and you're cycling ostensibly their best card, backroom dealings is just a great way to, set up and know what they have. Queen's Gambit, though, there's a lot you can do there. I've played a fair bit of Victoria's lately. Out of activation pushes that you can get in and out of engagements with, that can really mess people up. And you have a lot of 2-inch reach in Keyword and in Thunders in general. But it's Key and Gong. So in Keyword, you have a couple models that have some really good uses for this trigger. So that's something to keep in mind. We're going to talk about We Own You in a minute. But this is, We Own You is the reason Youko is now a proper control master. Real quick, the changes to Distracted and Focus. If you're not aware, it used to be that Distracted and Focused just both stacked on a model indefinitely, and whenever you took an action against an enemy model, you would lower your Distracted automatically. Focus would go down at your choice, and the general action assist that any model can do will reduce Distracted by a variable flip of 1, 2, 3. So what you had in the past was people would do these focus bombs, where they just load up a bunch of models with focus through things like Blasphemous Ritual, Horrible Hollerin', Academic Broadcast. And if they did get distracted on themselves, they'd either spend a small model like a Bayou Gremlin or Malifaux Rat action to interact and remove the distracted, or they just spend a focused when the distracted would go off and be on a net straight flip. That doesn't happen anymore. Now, when they meet, distracted and focused just neutralize each other. And focus caps at 2. And if you remember looking at Riddles in the Dark, that can give you distracted 2 with a single action. With most focus bombs being once per activation effects, either be quick actions or specifically once per activation, if your opponent puts in the effort to put out a bunch of focus on their dudes, Youko can easily wipe most of that away with her own activation. Which means that you're trading your master actions for opponent, typically master actions or some other resource. You can competitively compete with your opponent on that resource trade. And there is no cap on distracted. If you over-distract your opponent, now they have to spend even more resources trying to deal with your distracted. It's really good. So we own you. I said we'd get back to this, didn't I? At first blush, we own you looks like a super niche obey. You can't do anything. You can't do anything unless you have distracted 2. It's only once per turn. You can't charge with it. Ugh, that seems super limiting. Let's break this down. First off, we own you as a tactical action. There's no opposed duel. If your opponent has a model with distracted 2, and you want to use this on them, you just need a 5. You get that 5, and you will tell that model what to do, and it will do it. Unresisted offensive obeys means unresisted offensive repositions. And this is a game all about positioning. It is once per turn, which is, fair. One thing to keep in mind, though, is when you tell someone to take an attack, if they're attacking someone in their own crew, their distracted does not go down. I heard some confusion about that at the start when her Errata first dropped. Distracted only reduces when you target an enemy model, and We Own You doesn't change friendly and enemy status. So you can go ahead and punch, you can load up Howard Langston with Distracted 2 and have him try and punch Tony, and she is going to have to deal with it. But there's a more impressive use of this action than telling your enemy models to punch each other or to move around. It's that fleeting moments trigger. Anyone who's seen my Terra games knows that I do best when I'm able to get fleeting moments off from Aeonis a few times, and then proceed to have the last few activations in sequence all to myself. Last activation is important in every turn in this game because schemes need to be set up, and having last activations means you get to choose whether or not you get to control when you score your schemes, and you have a better chance of disrupting your opponent's schemes. It fundamentally breaks the I go, you go pattern of the game. In 2nd edition, out-activating your opponent was the reason we have pass tokens, and now Youko can print them with a 5 of crows. Now you may be asking yourself, 2 pass tokens, 2 actions afterwards, you're spending them. Don't you have leverage? You do. The problem with leverage is leverage as an ability gives you additional pass tokens during the start phase, and only if your opponent's revealed a scheme. You can't reveal schemes turn 1, which means that leverage at earliest is giving you extra pass tokens turn 3. And that's happening after you've done your initiative flips. So you're not getting any benefits from it for initiative purposes until turn 4. And once you're into the mid-game, like around turn 3, you really don't want to be letting your opponent have multiple activations in a row at the start of a turn, because that's when they go in and they kill all your stuff. We Own You allows you to control activations in the early game, so you can set up for good trades in the mid-game, which allows you then to use your leverage in the late game to score your final points. It's that missing piece that the crew needed to function. So how do we get activation control early game? After all, you got to put distracted on something. Well, you don't have... put distracted on something, you have to use We Own You with the Fleeting Moments trigger. But Fleeting Moments and We Own You are not enemy only. So I've been trying setting up distracted on my own models in order to farm pass tokens without my opponent involvement. And I found in Malifaux that if you're doing a combo or an engine like this, the less you need your opponent's involvement, the more likely you are to have it go off. So you need 3 things. You need a model that can distract another model. You need a model that can be distracted and it's okay, because generally you don't want to be distracted. And you need a model to use the We Own You ability, or action. So this is Lust. Lust is one of the Crossroads 7, and she has that Seduction attack. Seduction has no TN, and just gives the target distracted. You can flip a black joker with Lust using Seduction on one of your models and still get distracted. Other models that you could do something like this, and I think they have actually the Seduction action, is Beckoners. Mr. Tannen, Low River Monks also have ways to give out distracted without needing triggers or specific cards. I like Lust because I think she has a lot of combinations in other ways with Yoko's abilities. Take a look at Consumed by Lust and Flirtatious Wink, but there would be more about her in another video. Okay, so we have someone who can spend 2 actions to put 2 distracted on one of my models. Who am I doing that to? This might be a controversial choice. I like Hinamatsu for this. I like Low River Monks in more killy pools. But the reason I like Hinamatsu to be the target of distracted is she's got a baked-in positive on her attack stat. Typically, distracted only matters if you're taking attacks at enemy models. And so you want either a model that's mostly using tacticals, like a Terracotta Warrior or Low River Monk, or a model that has baked-in positives on their attack actions, like Hinamatsu or Yasunori. Although Yasunori is not a good fit for Yoko's keyword, I don't think. We'll try him out later, now that I think about it. But yeah, if you spend Lust's activation putting distracted on Hinamatsu and Hinamatsu gets stuck in, she's still attacking someone with a stat 6 sword. Sure, her first 2 attacks she won't be flipping 2 cards on the attack flip. It doesn't cost you anything, and it doesn't impact her ability to do her job. You might have to cheat a little bit more often those first 2 swings. Okay, so we have a model who can be distracted, and it's not the end of the world for us. We have a model that can distract them easily without losing any resources or risking losing them. So now we can use We Own You on our model to farm those pass tokens. Well, you don't want to go with Youko right away, because once she's gone turn 1, your opponent can do whatever they want and you can't hit them hard at the end of the turn, which is really what you want to do with her. You want her to get in position end of turn 1. But the Terracotta Warrior, phenomenal little Force Soulstone model, comes in and saves the day. Just Like You is a great tactical action that you have on Changelings and you have here. Anyone who's played Asami or against Asami has probably seen a Terracotta Warrior specifically to copy A Mother's Love. Well, here, his job is to copy We Own You. It is at -2 stat, so you need a 7 of crows to get the trigger, not a 5. But I am not opposed to throwing any crow. I'll throw a 13 of crows for Terracotta to get the 2 pass tokens turn 1. Because going from having 2 pass tokens and a few activations at the end of turn 1 to 4 pass tokens, and my master hasn't gone yet, means that at the quickest speed, you can get 4 activations, 4 activations, Lust, Terracotta Warrior, and the 2 pass tokens. You can get 4 of those done. You still have the rest of your crew to go, and your opponent has gone with 4 models, or 3 models and has spent a pass token. It depends on what their crew looks like. For 4 stones, being able to just double the amount of pass tokens is bananas. With Terra, you're only getting between 2 and 4 extra pass tokens on top of her own free second activation. And that's taking the actions of a 10 Soulstone henchman. Terracotta Warrior costs 4. That's great value. So, like I said, let's put it together. Our turn, you're going to turn 1, I'm opening up with Lust. She's seducing Hinamatsu twice. Boom, instant 2 pass tokens. If I have the 7 of crows or better in my hand, I go Terracotta Warrior to copy the action. If I don't have it, I sometimes like a Kunoichi to grab it from the discard pile if it goes in there. I'll stone 4 cards at the start of the turn to fish for it. I think it's really valuable to have. And if nothing else, 2 We Own Yous on Hinamatsu is 12 inches of movement before she gets to go. It is easy on standard deployment to get Hinamatsu in position to charge into the enemy's deployment zone and just blender something to death. By turn 2, it is totally likely for Youko to get in and throw Distracted on models. So you don't need it to keep it on your own models turn 2 onward. Pardon. So, starting at crew building, this is the kind of core I've been playing around with. You have Youko, you have Chio. Bill and Hinamatsu together are an amazing pair of working models. Bill continues to impress. Hinamatsu continues to impress. And then you have Lust and Terracotta. And that's 21 stones left over. There's a lot of things you can do here. I'll have another video later on the versatiles and out of keyword hires I take. But yeah, so this is the core I'm going to be playing. And I'm hoping you're going to stick around and watch them. So for those of you who have stuck around to this part, have you been playing Youko? If you have, put something in the comments. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been finding. And, if you know people who are interested in Youko, send them this video. Let's get some conversation going here. And let's re-embark on this journey together, yeah? So, with that, until next time, thanks everybody.